Good evening, everyone. We are back on I'm back on the show again, Mondays with Coach Rice. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I know you have a lot of important things to do, but I'm important. We are important right now, anyway. But I just wanted to say, good evening and just continue to celebrate the veterans today because it is Veterans Day, and we both just want to just say thank you so much for your service and all that you do, the sacrifice and dedication that you have done for us. We just want to say thank you and honor you today and just continue to celebrate. The day is not over. So I am super excited about my special guest that I have on today. His name is Rob Baugh. And I just want to bring him on just to give you just a little bit about him before I pick his brain. And so he had a desire to bake, and wanted to open his own bakery at one time, and he uh, wasn't able to quite do that. Life took a different turn for him, and now he has his own podcast, and he had a brain injury and he recovered, and just we're going to talk about today how he found purpose in in resilience and coming back from that. So Rob, tell us tell us about who you are and what made you what kind of put you in a position to start a podcast.
Well, the reason that I started the podcast for one is because I had no purpose. I My life was changed 4 years ago because of an accident, and like you said, I was on my way to become a baker, and I was making extravagant cakes like you see on the Cake Boss. Um, I still have the desire to play music, and I've played by ear since I'm 4 years old, so that hasn't changed. So I still do that in my free time. Um, but because of the brain injury, it's left me with debilitating headaches that I'd suffer with around the clock. And I've dealt with that for the last 4 years.
Mm.
And for the first 3 years, I spent most of my time when I wasn't working my job in bed. And all those years, I kept praying for God to give me some kind of a purpose for what I've gone through, because I didn't want this to be in vain. And I would spend sleepless nights in bed looking on YouTube for videos of people like myself that were talking to other people going through the same thing. Kind of like a small support group, but also to give them a purpose to give them their story as well, to get their story out on, into the web. And I could never find what I was looking for. So I was telling my counselor about this, and she says, then you do it. I said, me, I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a very good communicator. Of course, at the time, I had a really bad stutter. And now I do have the stutter sometimes, but it only comes out when my brain is like really overworked and it's late in the evening. It comes out big time in the evenings. Um, so I was like, sure, I'll give it a try. Um, First episode did very well. And then I thought, I need someone to come on and co host with me because everybody's seeing it through one lens, one perspective. And the thing that I've found with brain injuries is they're like snowflakes. They're no two are alike. Everyone's got a different story. If you have line up five people in a row and you hit everybody in the head in the same spot, all five people will display different symptoms.
Mm.
So the phrase that I hear quite a bit that I don't like is, "Oh, we're all in this boat together." And what I have found that we're not in the same boat. We're on the same waters, but we're definitely not in boat. Some boats are
So
small,
true.
some boats are ships. So that's what got me into doing this.
Wow. So what can you tell us a little bit about what caused your brain injury?
Sure. So we have a koi pond in our backyard, and I go out every day at the same time and feed my fish. And I also have a severe reaction to bees.
Mm.
So I carry an EpiPen with me. So that's caused a little bit of a fear for bees. Well, I had fed my fish this one particular day, and as I was coming back in the door, a bee flew by my head as I was opening the door. And the knee jerk reaction is you duck. And when I ducked, the door caught me right here, and I
Oh
had
no.
yeah, I had a 3 inch laceration across my skull. And at the time, I didn't realize that's what had happened. It knocked me out, and when I came to, I was holding my head, and I thought, boy, that's gonna leave a big goose egg tomorrow, you know. And then when I took my hand away, I saw the blood, and I was like, oh, this is a lot worse than what I thought this was going to be. So thankfully, my wife was home, and I was able to flag her down to come get me to take me to the hospital.
Wow.
I should also tell you that this was at the very start of COVID
Oh no.
when when you
When you
could
couldn't
not
go,
go
your
in.
wife couldn't be in the room with you.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness.
However, I will say this: the hospital was so gracious because of my symptoms. They did allow her to be with me the entire time, or I don't know what I would have done. I would have panicked big
Oh
time.
my goodness.
Yeah,
And so I know you never thought you would be in this position. No one does, right?
right.
And so what symptoms did you have after that? After the you had the injury.
The biggest symptoms that I have still to this day is short-term memory,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're constantly having to be reminded. The phrase that we hear most often in our house is, "Yeah, you told me that already." Or another one that's hard to swallow is I'll talk about family members that's died, say, within the last couple of years, and my wife will have to say, Rob, they passed away. And I was
Okay.
at the funeral and I have no memory of it. So it's kind of a blessing, but also it's a curse.
Okay. So when your wife have to remind you of, oh, they passed away, do you have a physical reaction, like do you repeat grief again? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I think I go through about half of the grief I probably would have initially went through because it maybe something behind the brain's going, yeah, you knew that. But then it's like it knocks the wind out of you again because you're thinking I just spoke to them yesterday, and no, it was 6 months ago this person might have passed away, and I have no clue that they passed away.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so the like when you said that sometimes you may repeat things that you said. we
Mm-hmm. Oh
I,
yeah.
I do that anyway too, but without a brain injury. No, but but I can't imagine like going through that. But I love the fact that you have created an atmosphere for those who have a brain injury. Now, let me ask you a question. What's the on the continuum brain injury can be? Is it any brain injury? Do you have like only a certain type of brain injury? I'm just curious. Like,
There's several types of brain injuries. There's even acquired brain injuries where they can be acquired over time. Um, I actually talked to somebody once that was born with a brain injury.
oh wow,
They have no idea how that happened. The person, I think I'm telling you right, I think the person thought that the child was like on the spectrum, but after the doctors wouldn't listen to her, she finally went to another, several states over to another medical center, and they said, she's got a brain injury. And she was born with it. So, I mean, it comes in all shapes and sizes. And in talking to some neurology people, I've learned that the younger you are when you have a brain injury, the, the higher your success rate is of getting through it, if that makes
okay,
any
that make a
sense.
lot of sense
Yeah.
because the brain is a very very complex part of us,
Yes.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a computer.
Yeah.
I always relate it to a computer because, and it's the most. It controls everything your body does. That's
Yeah.
that's why it's so interesting. I remember, my mother, she passed away from a brain tumor, but I remember when we when we joined the support group, I was just blown away at the differences. Everybody had a brain tumor, but it was very different for each person.
Yeah.
But one of the only thing that was the common thing was that it controlled their body,
Yeah.
and everything that they couldn't do was involved in that
Hmm.
diagnosis. So I was very like, wow, I was very blown away because we wanted to know what was our mom actually dealing with, when she had the brain tumor. But when so what does, like, you have you have people on your podcast that deals with brain injuries.
Hmm.
Do you have people who deal with dementia? Do you have people who deal with um, brain tumors? Is it all brain injury all across the board?
Any type of neurological brain injuries, one we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks is someone that I know personally had an aneurysm.
Mm, that's a big
So
one.
that, yeah, um, I've been trying to find somebody with dementia, but we've had all kinds of different types that's closer to that realm. But even caregivers, we talked to somebody who was a brain injury therapist, and she actually lives in England. And anybody that complains about our healthcare system, I we're blessed. We are very blessed because if you're in England and you have a brain injury, they make you wait 2 years to get treatment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the funding's just not there. Unless you have, if it's a workers' comp claim, you get right in.
Okay.
Other than that, yeah, you're in a different. You can't go.
Wow. So with your podcast, what do you want it to look like? Like, what would be a success for you, as far as like how far do you want it to go? What are your dreams, plans, goals around it?
My dreams is I don't know if you've heard Mr. Beast. He's like the biggest podcaster, or not podcaster. He's just like the biggest YouTuber out
Okay.
there. He's got millions of subscribers. I want everyone to be able to hear about a brain injury because it's something you don't think about until it affects you.
You are
Because
absolutely correct.
yeah, I mean, just like think about cancer. I mean, we all know someone's got cancer, but you really don't think about it until it's in your backyard. So, before we're off today, I mean, think of the millions of people that'll have a brain injury. I mean, even something minute.
It can happen to anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't planning on knocking myself out on
Right.
the door. And I've heard so many stories of different people that's had just weird things that you everyday things you're just doing and all of a sudden bam. A really good friend of mine that and I'll tell you I'm gonna lead into this too. She was an author and she was also a nurse and she was just having dinner out at a restaurant, like at a backyard patio type restaurant, and a big gush of wind came up and it pulled the umbrella out and smacked her in the back of the head. And she can't even do her job now. So she's got a very successful soap business. And by the way, I've been using her soaps, and just in under a week, my skin's really clearing up. Free advertisement for her.
Right.
And that's another thing too, with all the different types of medications that they put you on, trial and error. It changes your body chemistry, and
Right.
you're. I'm almost in 3 months. I'll be 50, and I'm starting to get acne. It's like I'm going, but it's because of all the different
The
changes in your body going on,
right,
all
the
the
chemical
hormones.
reactions to the
Yeah,
medications and all of that, right?
right. So it's just like, what else is going to happen? But you just roll with the punches and make the best of it.
Now, do you find that since you've done your podcast, well, I will ask you this question. Let me rephrase that. have you found? How has your podcast? You started your podcast. How has it encouraged you in this
This is
journey? In
how
this
it's
journey.
encouraged me. This has been my biggest encouragement is every time I think, gosh, that one didn't do very well, and am I really making a difference? You know how sometimes the devil likes to
Oh yes.
sneak in
Oh
there and say,
yes.
"Oh, you're not changing anything." And every time I have that thought in my head, I'll get 3, 5, 8 emails or comments on the thing saying, "This really blessed me." And one thing that really blessed me was we had done a podcast about what not to say to a brain injury survivor, and it really did very well. But a lady emailed me and she said, for and forgive my numbers come out weird because of the brain injury, but she goes, for the last 5 years, I've lived with this brain injury, and my husband says, "Oh, you just use that as an excuse. You can do more than you really can." And da, da, da. And she said, after I saw this, I made him sit down and watch the podcast. And she said, after we got finished, he looked at me and he said, "I am so sorry for what I have done to you the last 5 years." He said, "I believe what you're telling me is true." And she said, "I'm making all of my friends watch this." That was so encouraging to me. I
That
thought,
is.
and then it reminded me, and you've probably heard this story. Um, one, and this has always stuck in my brain. Just several years ago, a pastor of at a church I went to, he told a story of a little boy walking down the beach, and he would pick up a starfish because if they're out of the water, they can't survive.
Yes, I heard this story.
And he throws them back. And a man sees him doing this, and he looks at the beach and he sees all of the starfish, and he says, "Little boy, you're not going to change the lives of all those starfish." And he said, he picked up a starfish and he says, "No, but I made a difference for this one," as he threw it in the ocean. And that's how I'm looking at this.
I
I know I
like
can't
that.
change everybody's perspectives, but I made a difference for one.
So yeah, when so I saw your interview on Be Awesome Network, and it I was very touched by the fact that you started a, I call it a virtual support network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was so I was so curious about it because I'm always you know, as a coach, a mental health coach, I'm always encouraging people, please do your mental health check because
Mm-hmm.
the brain shuts down. You can do
Yeah.
nothing. Sometimes it just shuts your body down.
Yes.
I could break my leg and still go to work and do everything, but the brain shut down, it would shut you down.
Mm-hmm.
And so the right amount of stressor or something can cause you to just completely shut down. That can happen to anybody. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my God, I want to interview him. I want to interview him on my podcast because I want my audience to know that there's a group out here for this because I've never known that a group like this exists, but virtually. And so
Yeah.
for people to come on and tell their stories and for you to invite them into your home, into your actual space to do this is so encouraging.
Thank
And
you.
hearing it, it just reminded me of how, wow, how resilient I saw you and how authentic you were with it. And I said, I really, you see, I reached out to you, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. When you said I can't because I have to work in the daytime, and that time I got to figure out what that when that time will work. Do you know you encouraged me to open up these hours? Just so you
Oh.
know, because I said I could do evening hours, and so and it also, so what I did was I wanted to keep the authenticity of Mondays with Coach Rice because so I chose to do interviews on Mondays only
Okay.
to keep it that way. But it it's evolving, it's new, it's
Yeah.
changed because I don't like dialoguing by myself. I'm an extrovert, so I want to talk to people. And so this is awesome. And so, but I also want my audience to know what's out there because, and I want to know what's out there. Give me a chance to see what's out there. And
Yeah.
for you to have such a platform like this, be encouraged and keep going
Thank you.
because even when yes the devil is yes you're gonna have that thought that come in and say stop, you ain't making a difference. If you touch one person while you had this podcast going, guess what, you did your just due. The
Yeah.
rest is extra.
Yeah.
And I have to tell myself that too. I when I've touched one person, I've touched enough. And if I touch extra, that's even more rewarding than I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing what I'm purposed to do.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's not about numbers.
Right.
It's about the influence that you have and how you have helped someone to when you can help someone to repent to their spouse and say I'm sorry.
Yes.
Because some people,
Can you believe a man said he was
yes,
sorry?
and even when you have like when you are not yourself and you have to adapt to a new norm,
Hmm.
people don't quite get that sometimes, and they don't. I don't think they mean to be insensitive. It's just their reaction to I can't handle what you're actually going through. So I
Right.
need to feel better about what I'm feeling. It's not
Hmm.
so get over it. And and that's why I said when you said that's why I asked you that question about the grief aspect because I thought that was pretty interesting because if you can't remember that the person passed and someone tell you you're reliving it to a degree all over
Hmm.
again and depending on the
Oh yeah.
relationship of that person, imagine what you're going through outside. You have a brain injury but it's affecting other parts of your life, and
Yeah.
that's pretty um, that could be detrimental. And so,
Hmm.
how do you? You mentioned you had a counselor. I'm so glad to hear that because we all. I have a counselor, but some people don't understand the value. Can you tell me the value of you going to have a counselor?
Yes. It's, let me tell you, in some people's cases, and even in mine, it was a lifesaver because, like you said, mental health is so important. Um, and I won't give all the details because it isn't a book that I have just written,
Ooh,
and I'm working with a publisher to actually meet this Wednesday. So it'll probably come out the first 2 months of the new year. But I talk about this all throughout the book about how important it is to get treatment. Um, I had an incident happen to me when I was a young child, and I carried that mental, you know, that burden on my shoulders that I shouldn't have had to carry all through my adult life.
right.
And my wife is the one that said, Rob, we got to get you help. And those thoughts of unaliving yourself, that's when definitely, that's when it's very important to get help. And when you're in, especially when you're a brain injury survivor, if anybody tells you they don't have those thoughts of ending it, they're lying to you.
Oh yeah,
Because there's
absolutely.
several nights that you, for me, I won't speak for everybody, but for me, several nights I would lay in bed crying myself to sleep because you grieve, you really grieve the person that you lost because you're living a whole new life. So yeah, it's very important.
And so you're gonna talk about this in your book, how you grieve.
Yeah. Well, the book, and this is kind of interesting how this all worked out. I wanted to write a book about my brain injury, and that was all the book was supposed to be about. But as I was writing it, God would put little nuggets in my head and like, remember you survived this.
Oh,
Remember you survived this. And at first I was like, why do I have to keep, I don't, I've already got past that. Why do I want to live this over again? But when I took myself out of it and I realized it's not about me,
Right.
it's about who can I help. So the book is about my brain injury, but it's also about so many different other traumas that can probably just about fit into everybody's category.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's what I'm hoping to achieve from this is I'm hoping that this book will be a continuous ministry that'll outlive myself.
That's gonna be good. You gotta, you definitely gotta keep me posted when you release it, so I can have you on again. But because I'm so glad, I was gonna ask you, did you have a book? That was gonna be my question. So I'm glad you are going into writing a book. That's gonna be amazing because people need to hear
Mm-hmm.
different stories and how to overcome because it wasn't just the end, right? It's
Yeah.
like this is how you really found your way, because you could have just sat back and just laid in the bed and you had a choice either to turn your pain into power
Mm-hmm.
or to or to just sulk in it, right?
Right.
How has this impact impacted your marriage and in your relationship?
In some ways, I feel it's made it stronger because I have, even though I'm still a man and still hard headed, I used to be the guy that I wanted to do everything. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. It's caused me to take a step back and allow myself to let others do for me.
Okay,
So that was a big, big, big pill to
that's a
swallow at
big
first.
change.
Yeah. Um, I mean, just like we used to go out to events every once in a while. I mean, in this economy, who can afford to go out and do anything? but um, if it's going to be something that there's a lot of people, my wife will say, "Now, Rob, it's going to be packed. You're not going to be able to handle this." And she doesn't do that to be mean and say, "I don't want you to go with me." She's doing it to protect me because she knows how I will react when I'm around a bunch of people. It's not good. I mean, that fight or flight fear is just
Yes,
like amplified. So,
I'm sure. I just want to take a moment to honor your wife. I'm a wife, and I just want to honor her for just being that support to you because that is major. And I don't want to overlook that because,
oh yeah.
you're blessed big time because you do
Mm-hmm.
have someone who love you unconditionally. That's showing that unconditional love. And
Yeah.
I just want to just honor her and say, hey, she's standing up for the women in the world to be that wife that cherish her husband and honoring her vows. Everybody can be with you when you up. But when
Right.
life sets in and things happen and life is life, and can you still stand by my side and walk through life
Mm-hmm.
with me and look out for me without treating me in a worse way? And so when you say your marriage got, your relationship really and it enhanced, that's amazing. And I don't want to overlook it because everybody always looking at the negative, but they never honor the positive. And so I just want to say, honoring your wife. What's her name?
Sheila.
Sheila. Sheila, just we want
Yeah.
to honor you for being an amazing wife and and
She's my
support
hero.
and supporting your husband and that's encouraging. Just want to say that.
Yeah, she is my hero. And I tell you what I did not realize, and I've found out quickly when I joined these support groups on Facebook, I didn't realize that divorce rate when someone has a brain injury is super high. And that blew me away. I just cannot
The
fathom.
divorce rate just in marriages just for not putting your socks away. No,
Yeah.
it's high. So you can imagine when when there is a not just a brain injury, but when there's any health declination in health or any type of anything that causes us to have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
If we're selfish human being, it's coming out. It's coming
True.
out, and and that's why I say you blessed, because when we all step into a situation where we're getting married, and we are at the altar, we want that. We want the I do to say, no matter what happens to you, I'm here.
Hmm.
That's ultimately what every marriage wants, but it doesn't always happen. The divorce rate is high, and I'm
Yeah.
not surprised.
Yeah. I would have thought, and I mean, this is just being naive. I would have thought, that's when someone needs you the most.
Exactly.
And my wife tells
That's
me
when
every
I need
day,
you. Period.
right? My wife says every day, she goes, I took my vow seriously. I didn't say for better or better. That says it all right there.
That says it all. So I know we coming up on time, and I want to respect the time. And I thank you so much for agreeing to come on and giving me the opportunity to interview you. Not only that, to give me ideas about my own personal show. And I definitely subscribe to your channel, and I did put all your information in my channel. And
Well, thank you.
and I just pray that if I know somebody personally that has a brain injury, I know who to send them to, because there is a support group out here. And I just want to thank you for having that. And anything you want to say to the listeners, any tidbit information, any encouraging word, anything you want to say, any last words you want to say before we end this?
Yeah, I want people to know that you're not alone. And that's the biggest thing in a brain injury is you feel alone, but you're not. Also, I've started a support group on Facebook as well. So if you don't want to attend one virtually, I do virtually support groups once a month in addition to the podcast. But if you want to join a support group, I have one called Brain Injury Support Life Rewired. And unlike other support groups, they like to keep it to where you can't talk about anything you got going on, like books, if you're going to be on television or radio or what have you. I encourage anybody in my support group to share, because if you're a brain injury survivor, and maybe if you're, say you're selling soap and that's your only source of income, sell it.
Sell it.
I support that. Sell it. Anything that you want to sell it. And my group knows that if you don't like something, scroll on by.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It has been an honor. And I just definitely want to tell my audience, thank you for listening. And if you found something on the show that was helpful, which I hope you did, I want you to just hit the subscribe button, um, and just subscribe to both our channels. Actually, mine is Mondays with Coach Rice. His is Life Rewired Podcast. Look us up. We're here, and we just want to be a blessing to others. We have similar goals, and it is to serve the people. And so I just want you guys to definitely take a look, and thank you for listening. We are signing off.